Greetings everyone, Spartan here. Welcome to the PBAL Season 3 Draft Analysis. This league is hosted by none other than Aaron12, and I am the coach of the Victorville Victini. I wanted to do another Wi-Fi league after playing through LDL, and so here I am. I was able to have a chance to play through this one. Got about like 16 coaches playing through this league with a 12-week period. This is also a open draft, not open draft, open Z league. So all Z's outside of like Munium Z and Comonium Z, and also like Omni boosting Z's are allowed. So this might be an interesting season, not gonna lie. And this is probably a good chance because let's see how, because this will probably be the last time I'll be using Z crystals, you know, so might as well give it a chance. As for the draft, I pretty much drafted pretty badly, but I try to change it throughout my grace period. So the team that I'm about to show is actually a bit different than what I initially drafted. I'll mention a few the changes and go from there. So without further ado, let's get into the draft. So I initially tried to draft for Victini, but kind of screwed up and didn't get it, so that's my fault. So I still wanted to draft some mons that I really like, I wanted to use that are very flexible in Z as a Z user. So the first one I went ahead and picked up was initially Superior, but instead, for the grace period, I ended up trading it for Slowbro. Slowbro is a very bulky water and psychic type, very good ability with Regenerator, has a very flexible move pool that is very optimal as a Z user. Moves such as Ice Beam, Fire Blast, heck, even Zap Cannon. There's even a Belly Drum possible set. In terms of the mon itself, I've used Slowking before in LDL, and it put in a lot of work. So hopefully that the fact that I'm using Slowbro, I'm hoping that it'll do just as much as a carrion as a very bulky water type. The next mon, I initially picked up Araquanid, but I decided not to use it because I literally have Araquanid in like 3 other leagues, so I didn't want to do that. So instead, I traded it off for Alolan Persian. Alolan Persian is a very good Z user in terms of Departing Shot, which is a very helpful D that is very beneficial for my team that I'm drafting. Has a great speed tier of 115, has priority and fake out, has good dark type moves, and it has a decent amount of flexible moves that you can learn as well. So, and also has fur coat. It's very bulky. For having that fur coat without the same effect as Fluffy, where it's like double weak to fire, but not for fur coat. So that's good. Technician is also very viable as well. In terms of the mon, I drafted this because I really like the option of having a party shot user, and I didn't really see the volley where he was until like later on in the draft, and I was like, might as well pick it up since it wasn't drafted near at the end. So I went ahead and picked this one up. Next draft on, I initially picked up Volcanion, but I decided to drop it. I just didn't feel like drafting Volcanion, to be honest. So instead, I went ahead and dropped it for Aerodactyl. Now, I mentioned this before in LDL about how I feel about Aerodactyl, specifically Mega Aerodactyl, having good moves but most of those moves are very inaccurate. But having to get great speed, great offensive typing, kind of mix it up. Having access to like the elemental things can make really good aspects for as a Z user, as well as moves such as Earthquake. I could also use, like, let's say Sky Attack for a Supersonic Sky Strike nuke. So that'll be very beneficial. It's also a good defogger. It's also a very good Stealth Rock user, Taunt user as well. Having access to both a Nerve and Pressure, both being really good defensive abilities. I don't know about Rockhead, not to be honest, because the only move that's very viable for Rockhead is Double Edge. I don't really see myself doing that. Other than that, this is a very fast, viable mon that I wanted to use and give Aerodactyl a second chance. Now the next mon is my Mega. Initially I drafted Mega Ampharos because, you know, since Generation 8 won't have Megas, I wanted to draft Fabio, but I noticed that there was one Mega that was not drafted the entire time, and it was still there. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna build fix the team around and build it around this mon. And so I dropped Mega Ampharos to pick up Mega Mawile. This mon almost has no switch-ins. It has a great base power of 105 in attack, with boosted by huge power, which makes it hit even harder. Having great coverage moves of like Ice Punch, Thunder Punch, Fire Fang, along with priority in Sucker Punch, great stab, and a great typing of Steel and Fairy. I don't really need like 2 fairies or two steals. I mean, I could maybe later on, but as of right now, Mega Mawile, it just fits that role perfectly well as both my Steel and my Fairy type. So I'm not too worried about that. Sure, it may not have like the greatest HP pool or great speed, but I can work that around with Slowbro in terms of using like Trick Room and able to break through. I get able to force some switch outs and try to bring in a subset like sub Focus Punch, you know. Other than that, I really like this pick that I went ahead and grabbed instead of Mega Ampharos. Yeah, I'm sorry, Mega Ampharos, maybe another time, hopefully. The next mon I went ahead to pick up is actually a mon I did that was initially drafted, and I went ahead and kept it, and that is Scolipede. Now, Scolipede is actually allowed to have Baton Pass with Speed Boost. I can't like do Speed Boost plus Sword Stance or Iron Defense and then Baton Pass, but I can just raw speed Baton Pass speed, and not gonna lie, that's very beneficial, especially with Mega Mawile on my team. That's very helpful to give it a nice little speed boost and able to outspeed some mons that it has trouble to defeat. Other than that, it's a great Z user. Has good stab of its own with Mega Horn, Poison Jab. It also good coverage moves such as Earthquake, Aqua Tail, for instance. It also has access to Toxic Spikes and Spikes, so actually you can use this mon as a Spikes user, in which Mega Mawile really appreciates like hazards on the opponent's side of the field, so that it makes switches even harder to pull through, and for Mega Mawile to break through. The Scolipede overall is I think is an understandable tier 1, and I really wanted to use Baton Pass for that isn't just like, you know, Mew from LDL. So I'm kind of glad to pick this one up. This next one is also a mod that I drafted and kept with kept with throughout the grace period, and that is Donphan. Donphan is a really good ground type, having great bulk in physical defense, have great physical base stats as well, both in base 120, having access to a huge amount of various kind of moves: Play Rough, Ice Shard, Knockoff, Head Smash, Gunk Shot. It has a lot of moves that could make this mon a very, very strong D user. It also has access to Rapid Spin and Stealth Rock, so I can able to use this mon as a hazard remover without actually using defog, so I won't have to get rid of my own rocks or my own spikes. Also, another mon that be able to benefit from Scolipede through speed passing as well. It also has a good different sets such as Assault Vest, Life Orb, Choice Band, Pinch Berries, for instance. So it's a very good, flexible ground type. And this is actually the very first mon that I drafted in a. It was in RU Open League, and the first mon I went ahead and picked up was Donphan because I love Donphan. And I never had the chance to draft it until today, so I'm kind of glad that I was able to pick this mon up, and I really love Donphan. The next mon, let's see, it was initially, I'm trying to remember what it was. I think it was Klefki. Let me double check. It was, yeah. No, it's actually, initially I traded my Comfy for Diancie. I wasn't going to be using Diancie, not in this one. So instead I went ahead and picked up, dropped it and picked up Virizion. Virizion is a very bulky grass type in the Spadef area. Good typing in grass and fighting. It's not as flexible as Chestnut or Breloom are, but it does have access to be either a physical attacker or a special attacker, with access to Sword Stance and Calm Mind, able to use moves like Giga Drain, Focus Blast, Leaf Blade, Close Combat. Even has access to Stone Edge as well. It even has some flying moves as well to cover its own, so it won't be walled by other grass types. So it's not that bad, and it also has a good speed tier of 108. So I can, and it also works really well with Slowbro, since it's also works well in both the grass, water, and fire core, and the psychic, dark, and fighting core. Which I pretty much completed with Persian as well. I used to have this mon back in the early days of LEL, but I never really used it, and I actually traded it off for a Breloom. So this is my chance to actually give it a shot, because I'm not 100% sure that it'll be even accessible in Generation 8, so, or Sword and Shield. So giving it a chance. Next up, this one's one that I went ahead and traded. This one was initially Klefki, but since I had a Mega Mawile, didn't needed it, so instead I dropped it for Chandelure. Chandelure, with its typing of Fire and Ghost, makes it a very hard, very difficult mon to switch into. Having great abilities in Flame Body, Flash Fire, and Infiltrator makes it a really good wall breaker and a good fire immune mon. Has access to a decent amount of special attack moves such as Dark Pulse, Energy Ball, Shadow Ball, Flamethrower, Fire Blast. So it makes it a really nice move, Z user as well. I always wanted to use this mon because I used Mega Marowak, Alolan Marowak, and I like the typing of Ghost and Fire. And so instead of going for another physical attacker, I wanted to go for a special attacker, so I went with Chandelure instead. The next mon I have up next initially was Normal Rotom because I wanted to give it a chicken chance, but since I already had a Ghost type, I didn't feel like it's needed. So instead, I dropped it to pick up Electivire. Electivire has a huge amount of various attacks, similar to Donphan, but the difference between them is that Electivire can be a special attacker as well. Base 95 special attack is pretty decent attacking stats, so it can run moves such as Thunderbolt and Flamethrower. It can still run like Earthquake, Cross Chop, Wild Charge, Elemental Punches. What else? I'm trying to think in the top of my head. It also is good, nice electric immunity with the Motor Drive, giving me a nice +1 in speed. I could also make this as a sleep fodder with Vital Spirit as well. So it's a nice little flexible tier 5 mon. In fact, I initially think this is worthy of a tier 4, but you know, it was there in tier 5, so I went and picked it up. So last two mons were initially drafted because I wanted to draft them. One of them is Latios. I initially was thinking about drafting a different dragon type instead, but I went ahead and picked up Latios because of its offensive pressure, dropping Dracos, you know, one of Joey's Pokemon's mascot, able to drop Dracos, has good move pool such as Thunderbolt and Ice Beam, can run physical set as well with Dragon Dance, with moves such as Outrage and the Headbutt, Earthquake, for instance. So it's a nice offensive mon and a good Z user as well. You'd be a defogger as well if I wanted to, and it's a good pair with Mega Mawile because of its levitate ability. I could able to switch this in to ground attacks, and I could able to switch out between the two because their typing wise, they work relatively well. And last but not least is another mascot for Pokemon, and that is Miltank. I actually like this mon. I never had the chance to draft this mon, and I really wanted to use it. So having this as the very last pick and it was still available was a steal nonetheless. It's a great cleric with Heal Bell. It has 3 great abilities in Thick Fat, Scrappy, and Tap Zipper. So it has an immunity into grass moves, has resistances to ice and fire attacks, or has a way to deal with ghost types that isn't resulting into going with coverage moves. So this is a very helpful mon to have on my team. Relatively bulky, relatively fast bulky, not gonna lie, with base 100, but it is a very bulky and a very good mon. You can also run offensive as well because his offensive stats in the physical side isn't that bad, so I could probably run a physical offensive Miltank if I wanted to. But other than that, that is the team. This is what I'm going with. Not gonna lie, I know there's a couple of weaknesses. I know there are questionable draft picks, but nonetheless, this is a draft that I wanted to use because I wanted to draft a team that I wanted to enjoy and not try to force myself to automatically like remove mons all the time and draft new mons. I wanted a team that I could use without worrying about like not what's the word to say, not like using free agency trades. like using the least amount of free agency trades as possible. I mean, I might have to use one. I'm not saying which one, but I might have to eventually if I wanted to. But other than that, this is the team I'm going for. I mean, the main goal for this season is just to have fun. I'm not trying to go for playoffs. I'm not going to go for wins. I'm just going to try to have as much fun as possible, because this is the last time we'll be playing Megas and Z Crystals. And I want to give it my all with using one of the best Megas and having a team with a very versatile Z move pool. So thank you everyone for watching. Week 1 will be starting next week. So I hope to see you then. And until next time, I'll catch you guys later.